You are exhausted, but it is not the kind of fatigue that sleep can fix. It is a heaviness that sits behind your eyes, a gravitational pull in your chest that intensifies the moment you walk into a crowded room. You have spent your entire life being the emotional thermostat for everyone around you. When they are anxious, your heart races. When they are grieving, your bones ache. You pride yourself on this sensitivity, on being the healer, the listener, the one who understands what remains unspoken. But lately, something has shifted. Underneath that infinite compassion, there is a new, foreign vibration, a sudden, jagged flash of absolute coldness. You find yourself looking at the people you supposedly love and feeling a terrifying urge to simply turn off, to disconnect, to watch them drown in their own problems without lifting a finger. This frightens you because it contradicts everything you believe about your identity. You wonder if you are becoming a narcissist or a sociopath, or if you are simply broken beyond repair. Whatever you think this is, it is not a moral failing. It is a psychological inevitability. Carl Jung identified this specific crisis not as a loss of self, but as the desperate, violent attempt of your psyche to save you from total annihilation. You are currently trapped in what I call the empathic osmosis loop, a neurological and spiritual malfunction where the boundary between self and other has dissolved so completely that your own survival instinct has been forced to retreat into the unconscious. What you are feeling, that sudden, cold rage, is not evil. It is your shadow screaming for oxygen. To understand why this is happening, we must strip away the romanticized notion of the empath and look at the brutal mechanics of your neurology. Modern neuroscience confirms what Jung intuited a century ago through his concept of participation mystique. Your brain is equipped with a highly active mirror neuron system. When you observe someone else's pain, your anterior insular and anterior cingulate cortex light up as if the pain were happening to you. This is not a metaphor. Your body releases cortisol and adrenaline in response to a trauma that isn't yours. You are physiologically hallucinating the suffering of others. In a balanced psyche, the prefrontal cortex steps in to regulate this, creating a distinction that says, "I understand this pain, but I am not this pain." But for you, that gatekeeper is absent. You have developed the porous ego state. You do not just observe emotions, you metabolize them. You filter the collective toxicity of your environment through your own nervous system, cleaning the water for everyone else while poisoning your own well. Jung warned that this lack of psychic skin is not a virtue. It is a dangerous state of undifferentiation. By refusing to erect a barrier, you are not being good, you are being psychically promiscuous. The problem, however, lies in how you have constructed your persona. You have likely built your entire self-image around being the good person, the giver. Jung argued that the brighter the light of the persona, the mask we wear for the world, the darker and denser the shadow cast behind it. Because you have identified so strongly with kindness, patience, and understanding, you have repressed every impulse that contradicts that image. Your aggression, your selfishness, your desire for power, and your capacity for cruelty have not disappeared. They have been shoved into the basement of your unconscious, where they have been fermenting. This creates a phenomenon I categorize as the benevolent inflation. You believe, consciously or not, that you are morally superior because you suffer for others. You have confused lack of boundaries with holiness. But the psyche seeks balance always. If you consciously refuse to prioritize yourself, your unconscious will do it for you, and it will not be polite. That sudden flash of cold rage you feel, that desire to cut everyone off, that is your shadow acting as a chaotic bodyguard. It is stepping in to perform the act of self-preservation that your conscious ego is too nice to perform.
Consider the danger here. Jung observed that when the shadow is suppressed for too long, it does not just leak out, it erupts. It possesses the subject. This is why the most self-sacrificing people often end up having sudden catastrophic meltdowns or developing severe autoimmune disorders, the body attacking itself because the mind refuses to attack the things that are actually hurting it. You are suffering from altruistic cannibalism. You are feeding pieces of your soul to others to keep them warm, and now you are starving. But here is the paradox that Jung spent a lifetime trying to decode. The very thing you are running from, that cold, selfish darkness, is actually the source of the power you are missing. You feel weak and overwhelmed because you have cut yourself off from half of your battery. You are trying to navigate a harsh world using only your capacity for love, while leaving your capacity for destruction locked away. And make no mistake, you need your capacity for destruction. Not to harm others, but to define where you end and they begin. The ancients understood this. The alchemists, whom Jung studied extensively, knew that the prima materia, the starting material for the philosopher's stone, was found in the filth, in the parts of reality that were rejected and despised. Your power is not in your empathy. Your power is in your ability to turn that empathy off. This concept is terrifying to the uninitiated, but it is the cornerstone of what Jung called individuation. Let us look deeper into the mechanics of this trap. When you operate in the porous ego state, you are essentially inviting psychic colonization. You become a vessel for the unspoken neuroses of everyone around you. If your partner is angry but repressing it, you feel the rage. If your parent is anxious but hiding it, you develop the panic attack. Jung called this projection, but in your case, it is introjection. You swallow the poison they refuse to drink. This creates a specific type of exhaustion known as the vicarious cortisol spike. Your body is running a marathon of stress responses for problems you cannot solve because they do not belong to you. And because the modern world is a constant deluge of high-frequency emotional data, from social media outrage to the anxiety of global collapse, your porous nature turns you into a lightning rod in a thunderstorm. You are grounding the electrical current of the collective unconscious through your own spine. It is unsustainable. The turning point comes when you realize that your empathy has become a compulsion rather than a choice. You are not helping people because you want to. You are helping them to stop the pain you feel when they are in distress. This is a crucial distinction. It is a form of selfish management of your own mirror neurons. You are fixing the external world to soothe your internal chaos. Jung would strip away the veneer of virtue and ask, "Who are you when there is no one to save?" If the answer is nothing or empty, then we have found the root of the fracture. You are using the emotions of others to fill a void in your own sense of self. This is why the silence is so loud. This is why you attract narcissists and energy vampires, not because you are unlucky, but because your psychic osmosis trap fits perfectly with their need to offload their toxic shame. They are the transmitter, you are the receiver. And until you scramble the frequency, you will remain trapped in this loop. To visualize this, consider a case from the archives of analytical psychology, a patient we will call Julian. Julian was a professional mediator, a man renowned for his supernatural ability to de-escalate conflict. He could walk into a room thick with hostility and almost by osmosis metabolize the aggression, leaving the air calm. He was celebrated as a saint, a natural healer. But behind the closed doors of Jung's consultation room, a different reality emerged. Julian confessed that he had begun to lose the ability to feel anything for his own family. When his wife cried, he felt a remote, clinical irritation. Worse, he was plagued by recurring nightmares of standing on a hill, watching his city burn to the ground, feeling not horror, but a profound, ecstatic sense of relief.
Jung did not diagnose Julian with a lack of empathy. He diagnosed him with an excess of it that had metastasized.
Julian was suffering from what we can categorize as the resonant collapse. He had spent decades suppressing his own aggressive instincts, his ability to say no, to judge, to reject, in order to maintain his identity as the peacemaker. Consequently, his psyche had no immune system. He had become a landfill for the collective shadow of his environment. The dreams of fire were not random. They were his own repressed capacity for destruction, compensating for his conscious passivity. The coldness he felt toward his wife was his nervous system engaging an emergency shut-off valve, the dissociative breaker switch, because the emotional voltage coming into his system had exceeded the safety limits of his biology. You likely see yourself in Julian's reflection. To understand where you are on this trajectory and how close you are to your own collapse, we must break down the pathology into its 3 distinct phases. This is the roadmap of the wounded healer. The first phase is the permeable membrane. This usually begins in childhood, often as a survival mechanism in a volatile household. You learned early on that to be safe, you had to hyper-anticipate the emotional states of the adults around you. Your amygdala became enlarged, hyper-tuned to micro-expressions and shifts in tone. You developed a 6th sense, not out of mysticism, but out of necessity. In this phase, you feel proud of your sensitivity. You are the old soul. But neurologically, you are training your brain to prioritize external data over internal stability. You are wiring yourself to be an open port for everyone else's data. This inevitably leads to the second phase, systemic saturation. This is where the physical symptoms manifest. Because your mirror neurons are constantly firing in response to others, your HPA axis, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, is stuck in a chronic fight or flight mode, even when you are sitting still. You experience unexplained fatigue, autoimmune flares, or digestive issues. This is somatic rebellion. Your body is trying to tell you what your mind refuses to acknowledge, that you are carrying weight that does not belong to you. You begin to feel a low-level resentment toward the people you help, a bitterness that tastes like ash in your mouth. You ask, why does no one do for me what I do for them? This is the first whisper of the shadow. Finally, you reach the most dangerous and critical stage, the one you are likely in right now, the shadow recoil. This is the stage of the sudden coldness. Your psyche, realizing that the conscious ego refuses to build a wall, builds one for you. But because this wall is built by the unconscious shadow, it is not a gate, it is a fortress without doors. You swing violently from extreme compassion to selective empathic immunity. You might look at a suffering friend and feel absolutely nothing, like you are watching a television screen. This state is terrifying because it mimics sociopathy. You fear you have lost your humanity. But Jung would argue you are actually experiencing the call to wholeness. The coldness is not the death of your empathy, it is the birth of your boundaries. The shadow is introducing you to the power of no. It is showing you the capacity for detachment that you desperately need to survive. The danger here is not the coldness itself, but getting stuck in it. If you do not integrate this shadow, if you do not learn to wield this coldness consciously, you will retreat into cynicism. You will become the dark empath, one who uses their understanding of emotions to manipulate rather than heal, simply to ensure they are never drained again. The tragedy of the modern empath is that they believe they must choose between being a martyr or a monster. Society tells you that to be good is to be accessible, to be soft, to be endless. Jungian psychology spits on this idea. Jung knew that a harmless man is not a good man. A harmless man is merely weak. A good man is a dangerous man who has his danger under voluntary control. You have spent your life trying to be harmless. You have cut off your claws and filed down your teeth to make others comfortable. And now you are bleeding out among wolves. The solution is not to try harder to be nice. The solution is to reclaim the very thing you have cast into the dark. You must retrieve your psychic sword. This brings us to the work of integration, the alchemical process of turning this leaden exhaustion into gold. You must learn to induce a state I call the Obsidian mirror. This is not about stopping the empathy, it is about changing the direction of the flow. Instead of absorbing the light and heat of others, you must learn to reflect it back to them, remaining cool and untouched surface. But how do you practically achieve this when your neural pathways are paved for submission? You have to rewrite the protocol of your interactions. You have to understand that your empathy has largely been a trauma response, a form of fawning designed to prevent conflict. Real empathy, high-level, evolved empathy, requires a strong ego container. You cannot pour water for others if you are a broken cup. You must become the vessel, not the liquid. This transformation begins with a radical neurological intervention I call cognitive gating. You must manually override the automatic firing of your mirror neurons. Currently, your empathy is a reflex. It happens to you. To seize control, you must introduce a microsecond of delay between the stimulus and your response. This is the sovereign pause. When you feel that familiar wave of someone else's anxiety crashing into your chest, you do not engage. You do not ask, "What is wrong?" You do not offer a solution. You physically freeze. You force your prefrontal cortex to come online and analyze the sensation as data, not as reality. You say to yourself, "This is a signal. It is not my signal." By doing this, you are effectively shifting from being a sponge, which absorbs everything indiscriminately, to being a mirror. A mirror reflects the image perfectly. It allows the other person to see themselves clearly, but the glass itself remains unaffected. It does not retain the image once the person walks away. This is the goal. You must become the obsidian mirror, dark, cool, and reflective, but impenetrable. This requires you to engage in what Jung called shadow work, but not in the way it is usually taught on the internet. It is not about journaling your feelings, it is about integrating your capacity for malevolence. You must find the part of you that doesn't care. You must find the part of you that is capable of walking away from a drowning person if saving them means drowning yourself. You have to touch that coldness you fear, that sociopathic spark, and realize it is simply the guardian of your life force. When you integrate this shadow, a strange thing happens. Your empathy stops being a weakness and becomes a precision instrument. You develop ruthless compassion. This is the ability to see someone suffering, understand that it is a necessary part of their own soul's journey, and refuse to intervene. You realize that by constantly saving others from their own karma, you are actually stunting their growth. You have been stealing their lessons. The coldness you felt earlier was your intuition trying to tell you this truth, that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone fall. This is the hardest lesson for the empath, to accept that you are not the architect of the universe. You are not responsible for the happiness of the collective. When you release this God complex, because that is what it is, a hidden inflation of the ego thinking it can save everyone, you return to your human size. And in that human size, you find your actual power. You find the energy to create, to build, to live your own life with the same intensity you used to live the lives of others. The final stage of this integration is the archetypal synthesis. You stop being the healer and you become the magician. The healer touches the wound and takes the pain. The magician observes the wound and transforms the perception of it. You use your sensitivity to read the room, to understand the hidden motivations of others, to navigate complex hierarchies, and to anticipate threats before they manifest. You use your empathy as intelligence, not as fuel. You are no longer the victim of the room's emotional climate. You become the thermostat that sets it. Understand that this transition will cost you people. As you erect these boundaries, as you stop functioning as the emotional waste disposal unit for your social circle, those who benefited from your lack of boundaries will revolt. They will call you selfish. They will say you have changed. They will try to guilt you back into the porous ego state. Let them. This is the necessary pruning of the garden. You are not losing friends. You are shedding parasites. You are reclaiming the energy that was siphoned off to keep their dysfunction alive. This path leads you to a state of anti-fragile empathy. Instead of being broken by the darkness of the world, you are strengthened by it, because you no longer hold it inside you. You witness it, you understand it, you respect it, but you do not eat it. You stand in the center of the storm, calm and grounded, watching the chaos spin around you, finally understanding that the eye of the hurricane is the safest place to be. We must conclude with a perspective on why you exist in this way. Jung believed that the evolution of consciousness was the ultimate goal of humanity. It is possible that your condition, this thin skin, this overwhelming connection to the collective, is not a defect. It is a prototype. You are an early model of a new kind of human, one where the illusion of separation is beginning to dissolve. The pain you feel is the growing pain of a species trying to realize that we are, in fact, one organism. But you cannot fulfill this evolutionary function if you burn out. You cannot help usher in a new level of consciousness if you are lying in bed, paralyzed by the cortisol of 1,000 strangers. You must master this gift, or it will master you. You have to be the one who can feel the connection without losing the self. You have to be the bridge, not the water flowing under it. The darkness you feel rising within you is not the enemy. It is the missing half of your wholeness. It is the iron in the blood of your compassion. Embrace it. Let the coldness teach you where your edges are. Let the rage show you what you value. Stop trying to be a saint and start being a whole human being. The world has enough martyrs. What it needs is people who are dangerously, vividly, unapologetically alive. You have spent a lifetime feeling too much. Now it is time to feel just enough. It is time to close the gates, raise the bridge, and for the first time in your life, sit exclusively on your own throne. The silence you find there will not be empty. It will be full of the one person you have been looking for all this time, yourself. See you in the next dimension.